Everyone has a story, but not every story was told. But today we have someone special, someone who have million stories, especially if you are a teacher, and he is a teacher. Because every day is a new adventure, a new personality, and a new excitement. I am your host, Masoud Saeed, joined by my dear colleague, Abdullah Hindiani. Hello, Abdullah.
Hello, Marzouk. Hello. And, it's such a pleasure to be here to be presenting this show with you because, on the Untold, we often meet people from all sorts of professions, right? You get to experience the ideas and the joys and the thoughts behind people from jobs and works you've only, encountered them briefly, right? And for today's episode, we have a teacher, Nawaf AlMahdi, who's a English teacher, and also he has a online, presence, right? He's educating people on TikTok and through all sorts of platforms. So I'm really curious to, to find the ideas and the motivation behind his work.
That's really cool. I'm curious as well, and I think we should dive in right now so we can not miss this excitement. So stay tuned.
And we're back with Nawaf AlMahdi, who's going to be educating us, pun intended, all about the aspects and the teachings of reaching broader audiences.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome, Nawaf. I know, since I was a kid, I got into teaching because I love to share information with my siblings. So that was the dedication they gave me to become a teacher. But for you, as a kid, did you always love teaching, sharing information?
Funnily enough, originally wanted to be a doctor like my mom, but fate had a different answer for me.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I had that talent, but I just was in denial at first. But then it just came in all of a sudden after I graduated from university.
Yeah, and I think, something that a lot of people are fortunate to know early on in their careers is that they find what they truly want, right? So for a lot of people, they may have those kind of, second regrets so many years later. But for you, fortunately, it came so early on.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, funnily enough, it really started when I was in the Toastmasters.
You were in Toastmasters?
Oh, yeah, I was.
Okay, high five.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Absolutely. So my uncle was the head of Toastmasters at the time, and he recognized how good I was at public speaking and won several awards in it, and that kind of thing. And then later on, I just realized that during high school, I would actually help my colleagues. I would do it begrudgingly. I don't do it because I like it. I just do it because I just want them to get them away from me.
Yes.
And then I realized that I was able to, follow instructions and teach them specific parts that they could not understand. And later on, after I majored in English, I just figured out, maybe I should give it a shot. If things don't really go that well, I might go to broadcast journalism or maybe writing and editing, I guess. But I'm just happy with where I am at the Ministry of Education.
Yeah. Nice. So you're working with the government kind of side. How did that shape your maybe personality or the way of teaching?
Thank you for the question. This is very important to me, by the way. I graduated during COVID in 2020, and they were in desperate need of teachers at the time. So when
Especially for English.
Oh yeah, specifically for English. And when they accepted my CV and I got into the interview at the ministry, the ELT Supervisor General at the time was Mrs. Suzanne El-Bshaiti before she resigned.
The one that creates terror for some of the people who.
Let's not get too deep in it, because I have people watching me from work, by the way. But she was very nice. She did recognize my talent in teaching, and she said, why don't you come teach high school level? You seem to be very good at what you do. Good. You know what? Why not? I mean, I actually wanted high school. I didn't want to teach middle school, but I wouldn't mind also teaching elementary. But middle school, absolute no. But how did it shape my personality? Okay. My first year of teaching was very interesting because I used to be very tense, always angry, and part of it has to do because half of my family are teachers as well. One of my cousins is an ELT supervisor, and one of my aunts is a mathematics supervisor at Farwaniya. Okay. So when they told me the first day, be very tense on the first day, don't give students the chance to make fun of you. And then later on,
so you can control the class.
Yeah, so I can control the class. But then later on, the first 6 months of teaching became very interesting and funny because how did I get into teaching? Because one of the students told me Mr. Nawaf, can you tell me what's the difference between soul and spirit? It's like, wait, how do you know that? Like, where'd you learn how these words? I learned those words when I was in the 5th grade. And he said, oh, because I watched the show Lucifer from DC. It's like,
Lucifer.
yes, like, okay. And then I just sat down with him and explained the difference between soul and spirit. And he was like, oh my God. He told me, did you know that when I asked one of my cousins, who was an English teacher, he got mad at me because he was thinking I'm trying to outsmart him. It's like, your cousin is an idiot, with all the respect, Yanni.
But what about English in particular that made you choose that one as a path?
I like the language, and I think part of it has to do because I was raised in the American system. My father used to work at the U.S. Embassy for many, many years, and even in the diplomatic sector. And part of it, I was the the new gentle parenting method that parents are doing nowadays.
What is that?
تربية حديثة.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like where parents have to, get their kids enrolled in private schools, private education, getting them language tutors. That's how I was raised. And that's one half of the story. The other half has to do with interest. I always had an interest meeting foreigners, okay, because I could not mingle well with the locals, like especially people from mine, and when I sit with Arabs, I was not immediately accepted. They thought I was weird because I spoke English more than Arabic.
I see.
Yeah.
So they were like a communication barrier.
Yes, it was a very big communication barrier at the time. And I love comic books. I love movies. I like writing and stories in English. And in Arabic, it's like, I always felt it was so repetitive. But when I started to read in Arabic again, things became more interesting in a different perspective. It's just because the media itself, I was raised on American media ever since I was a child, Yani.
So it can influence your way, also like
It did, yes.
people that you connect even like in a better way with.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you've also worked in, broadcast media and in corporations and corporate training. And I want to say that what was the difference between those kind of career paths and what do you have in that right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I started giving, I started to come give episodes with KTV2, the Hala Kuwait program. It's one of my favorite, by the way. It started 2 years ago, and it was fun because I started to, put educational videos on my Instagram and TikTok accounts. But when it comes to corporate training, I got into it partially because one of my cousins is the head of HR and in a bank, and my father was also an adjunct professor at one of the universities, and that just inspired me to train as well because there's a very distinct definitions between teaching and training. Teaching mostly has to do with theoretical knowledge and academia. With training, you have to apply actual real-life skills for a specific job or a specific role within the company or an organization. I found it quite interesting. And one of the biggest gaps I found in Kuwait in general is that we have a strong dislike for writing, especially in English.
Yeah.
I love writing generally, and I enjoy teaching English for business, like business writing, report writing.
Fiction. Is that part as well, like fiction writing, or
Not
your field?
Oh no. With corporate training, I mostly focus on real life skills, mostly like business English.
formal.
As for creative writing, like fiction, no, that would be considered like part of workshops, writing workshops. I used to give them during COVID.
So did the corporate training and the work in broadcast media, did that affect or shape the way you kind of teach? Or
It did, yes. There's a philosophy I learned when I was in the Ministry of Education is that I'm a big fan of TikTok, by the way. If you look at my FYP, it's mostly American-based, not nothing in Kuwait, by the way. One of the there was this random video I found for a teacher, another one who was a former vice president at JP Morgan Chase, and she used to train junior employees. And she said, if you're a teacher or a trainer, always pretend that there's a camera in front of you. So it makes you more mindful the way you speak, makes you more eloquent in that sense.
yeah.
And how do you find like this influence on the student,
It does
your
help.
work, your
It does help.
workmates?
I've had parents come to me and they said, when my son showed one of your episodes on YouTube and like when it came live on television, it's like, whoa, yeah, we finally found a teacher who can really be an excellent inspiration for our kids.
That's really cool.
It was so nice to hear from some of the parents, actually.
Yeah, because a lot of teachers take the approach that they should give the cold shoulder to the students, right? It's like beyond the classroom, they shouldn't know me and I shouldn't know them.
Okay. I don't. Yeah. I think I do agree and a bit disagree on that statement.
Yeah.
You should not any. It's not giving the cold shoulder, but also don't let everyone know that you're an open book.
Yeah.
Try to keep some boundaries.
Balanced.
Yes, and even in my public Instagram account, I don't exactly show everything about my life. I just show my interests. Like books, cultures, reading, and teaching. And recently, I've gone to marathons. I began to enjoy going to marathons, and I try to get more into it as another hobby. But I do also have a private account that is just for family and friends. And sometimes I get puzzled from how intelligent kids nowadays, but also they can be very reckless. And how they found my private account is very disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. And they even tell me, it's like, oh, teacher, are you married? So, no. These kind of questions, I do not allow them. Yani, why should you know this? Why should you know if I'm married or not? That's none of your business.
Exactly.
That's just one example of questions. Like some of them even ask like, oh, what does your dad do? It's like, okay, if it's Adi, and my dad is just retired, so I can tell him Adi. Yani. I even tell him stories about my dad's profession in the diplomatic sector. But beyond that, no, I don't really.
The funny thing is, do you know when? It's like when you are about to put like grades, like the midterm.
Yeah.
You see like all of a sudden shares for your videos, likes for your posts.
That doesn't happen to me, unfortunately.
Wait, students do that?
Oh yeah, some of them do, but and some of them like I have students who talk to me on the DMs and they tell me, oh, Mr. Nawaf, please be gentle on us during the quiz. I'm like, Flan, please enter Teams. I do not communicate anything about school on Instagram. If you have any questions, please communicate with me directly on Teams. And I have to keep repeating saying that many, many times.
And I think we've seen that your approach to teaching is very hands-on, right? You're very involved within the class.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this can segue into my next question, is that have you ever struggled with this method? Have you ever struggled with teaching in general?
Can you define what's your definition of struggle and teaching head on?
So for a lot of people, sometimes walking into the classroom could be, one of the most fearful moments of their life, right?
Oh, yeah.
Taking those kind of steps. For a lot of people, it's saying in front of students, talking to them, educating them. For a lot of people, they find it easy. Like along your path, have you ever found those difficulties?
Maybe just in the first 6 months of teaching, I suppose, but it didn't last that long. The 6 months just went out quickly, because bear in mind, I am a literature major, not an education major. However, I do enjoy reading books about education. Okay, maybe some of the struggles I did get is motivating students today. Okay, like today's students, there's like you'll find very intelligent students, and sometimes the curriculum doesn't help, so they get bored easily. And I had to find ways to get them to be still interested in learning and not, side talk with their colleagues.
Exactly.
Yeah, it becomes a bit frustrating sometimes. One of the other struggles is having to deal with parents, some of the parents who, regardless of how much you have to warn them and tell them like, okay, this is very much important, your kid needs to know foreign languages. It's like, no, it's fine, let them pass. How should I let them pass? Why should I equate them to a hardworking student with a lazy one?
Yeah.
Why should I equate them? And this is becoming even more frustrating for me because, okay, you cannot compare an apple to an orange, but whenever I see videos of American teachers in the United States and they teach, yani here is actually a lot safer than in the US. Aside from school shooting and other drama, but a lot of teachers in the US and in the UK are leaving the profession in droves. And I'm seeing this is happening in Kuwait as well, unfortunately. I don't want to discourage anyone from becoming a teacher. Please, we do need teachers. We do need them. It's just about what kind of environment you face in which area in Kuwait. Another example, I've had a couple of colleagues who are fresh graduates, and they graduated from an amazing university. And the second year they work with me, I've been teaching since 2021, okay? Yeah. And they just recently started teaching, and they're so frustrated, and I just see them. It's like looking at a mirror, okay? And I tell them, like, relax, calm down, have a cup of tea, and just relax. I know it can be a bit frustrating to work in a difficult education area, but sometimes learning how to segue and, keep your cool will get you out of a lot of troubles, okay? Okay. When I started teaching, I used to work in corporate like for a year and a half before moving to the public sector, and I always wanted to change the world. I wanted every typical millennial.
But you are shocked by the reality.
Yes, when the reality hits, you have to cool down. You have to learn how to navigate. Just say, okay, I just want to do my work, get back home and chill. That's it.
Yeah. And speaking of cooling out and cooling down, we kind of have to cool down and take a quick break. Okay. But we'll be right back.
Inshallah.
And we are back with Nawaf AlMahdi, who's like a teacher, English teacher, also like a TikTok educator.
Thank you.
Welcome
Marzouk.
back.
Thank you, Marzouk.
We were talking before the break about teaching. Sometimes it could be very exhausting.
It is.
So how are you able like to manage between TikTok, between teaching? Because I remember back in the days, I would go back to my place and then I would just put myself like on the bed. I can't do anything anymore.
Same here, Marzouk. Everyone cools down in a different way, so you shouldn't be seeing me in my first year of teaching. I was a fireball coming to work, leaving, and coming to work and leaving work every day, full of anger, full of passion, and I would feel drained all the time. And later on now, I'm in my fourth year of teaching, alhamdulillah. So I feel cooled down. I just do my job and come back home. When I do my job, I do it like with dedication, but not just the bare minimum, Like I give out my dedication, but at reasonable amounts. Okay, the first 3 years were a complete fireball. And I began to learn from my senior colleagues who are more experienced in the field how to deal with the negativity and the
Bad situations.
The bad situations. And bear in mind, my senior colleagues who have taught for 20, 30 years in Kuwait, it's way different back then. Do you guys remember when we were students, when we'd have these regular notebooks? Now we have implemented a very nice system in our school that we are using pamphlets, mudhakarat, okay? Like there are like these exercises book that we got approved from our ELT supervisor, okay? And they save a lot of time and prevent students from trying to catch the teacher red-handed, like, oh, you haven't taught us this, okay? So imagine during a time where there was no Microsoft Teams and no smartphones, and everything had to be sent through a landline, or the secretary would have to bring you like a paper with the instructions, and everything in paper will be lost eventually.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't imagine being a teacher in a time before Microsoft Teams. It's like, wallah, when I graduated during 2020, it was a blessing, because if I graduated in 2019 and taught during that period, I would have torn my hair out every day.
No, I know.
Yeah, because I remember when we were kids and all the way through high school, we had books, and we'd had these large, kind of booklets or whatever, and teachers would like check them every day, every page.
Yeah.
But now, everything just digital, right? I know many schools that have iPads, many schools that, offer the students iPad, and it's such an easy way to facilitate teaching.
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the reasons why, in my opinion, when we used to have the tablets, do you guys remember the tablets when they used to present them in schools? Okay, I don't think it was a successful project per se, because it's all about the school culture itself, the culture of the country itself. If you compare it to private schools, and private schools, they will have you pay for the tablet if you break it, because by the end it's a for-profit school. But with public, everything is free. So yeah. But how do I cool down? I'm sorry, I think I just drove away from the question. But how do I cool down? I just simply sit with my family. I mean, my brother and sister are my best friends at home. So when I sit with them, I just immediately cool down. Okay. And I also just got recently married, and
inshallah. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And my wife is a very level-headed and intelligent person. So when I sit down with her, it's like I feel immediately calmed down. I cool off.
She energizes you.
Yes, she does energize me.
Yeah. And I think, having people that support you after a hard day at work is one of the essentials of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having a good support system in your life. I mean, okay, you might find some teachers who may not necessarily have a good family, but they do have really good friends who are a support system, and everyone needs a support system in their life to help them cool down from an exhausting profession such as teaching.
Especially like teaching English.
Oh, it is.
A lot of demand. Like sometimes you have to take 3 classes a day for the rest of the school year.
Okay, so one of the biggest misconceptions we have in language teaching is that bullying has very much evolved, unfortunately, and it's not just with cyberbullying. It's also the concept of class clown in many of the schools that I've heard of. But in my school, alhamdulillah, we have a very good administration that controls the classrooms and monitors them quite effectively. But class clowns are a big problem when it comes to language classrooms. You'll find them everywhere. I've taught even in institutes, and I've found class clowns, and managing them can be a bit of a hassle. The second misconception we have is that if I just stop at grade 12, I don't need to learn more. any other
Yeah.
language. This is one of the biggest mistakes I have to keep repeating to parents and tell them, okay, even if your son goes to a university in Kuwait or even abroad, they have to speak English.
Or
Okay.
they be saying like, hey, I'm gonna be like in military field. I don't need to learn English.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, even I have cousins who are in the interior, in the Ministry of Interior, and they have to learn English. Their English is very good, alhamdulillah. But what I'm saying is, even in the military, in all countries, they are required to learn English. Even if your English was at the upper intermediate level, which is
Yeah.
like or at the middle level, that by itself is the bare minimum. You need to have that kind of knowledge. Oh, and one more misconception that I find extremely dangerous is that if I just stop reading after grade 12, I will still retain my memory. No, 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 no. That has to be like the biggest, like the gravest mistake you can
It's like
have.
a muscle. They say memory is a muscle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And okay, I do. One of the things I find in my students, which is very interesting, is that they are very smart when it comes to taking care of their bodies. Like they are more aware of how important physical health is. They go to the gym more often. Like I think because more gyms are becoming more accessible. But at the same time, I wish that we have more reading clubs that are more inclusive, that are more dynamic, and that would also welcome learners of English whose English maybe is not as good as their peers, because we really need to learn how to, decrease the culture of bullying in schools, especially in public schools.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Because even I, as a teacher, I got bullied relentlessly from kindergarten until grade 12.
Yeah.
So I know how it feels to be bullied, and I try to, always have a very inclusive and a loving classroom every day when I come to work.
And that's a really important topic, because if you bully like the kid who's about to learn something new, then he's gonna stop that. And some of them, they are really smart and intelligent, but because of the bullying, they feel like they don't have that confidence to do it again.
Absolutely, it's not just that. I think part of it has to do also with the student mentality. Like I'm sure you find that many parents would tell their kids, "Oh, always make sure to ask your teacher. Always ask your teacher. And if you see your teacher mad, don't ask him." Okay, most teachers nowadays are becoming a lot more understanding than the previous generation, and that part of it because the previous generation of teachers, I mean, not all of them, but I say there's a chunk of them who are already stressed out, from having to pay bills and taking care of their own kids. So having to come to work every day and manage a classroom of 30 kids can be definitely stressful.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But
And you are dealing with a variety of personalities.
Absolutely.
Like, on daily basis.
absolutely, and also, it's not just the culture of bullying; it's also cyberbullying. Okay, and I always like to tell my students, like, okay, when you get home, try to shut down your phone for 2 hours. Oh, teacher, I can't do that. I know it's difficult for you to do that. We have the biggest FOMO in my school because, mashallah, and my students are very tech savvy.
Yeah.
So they get puzzled when I tell them, like, okay, did you guys know that when I was in high school, I would actually have to hand my phone to my parents for the last 2 years of high school. Oh my God, teacher, how did you survive without your phone? It's like
They're so ingrained in their technology nowadays.
absolutely, and okay, I understand that you can learn languages from video games, from talking to people, but I've also noticed something. Maybe you can agree with me, is that despite the fact we can learn English from video games and from AI, like from ChatGPT, but also at the same time, it's very much decreasing the quality of social interaction.
It is, yeah.
Have you been noticing this?
Especially for a lot of younger kids now, it's hard to maintain a conversation with them because they're usually now just answering yes and no questions, and they want to quickly go back to watching their iPads, whatever.
Let me tell you why. There was actually a very interesting research that I found that I think one of the issues why we have a difficulty interacting with Gen Alpha kids is that it's not just the visual stimuli. Okay, have you seen these videos of the game Subway Surfer?
Yeah.
Okay, what they would do is that there would be a narrator, someone who's talking on the video, and on the lower chunk of the video, there's a video game that is playing. So their brains are wired to consistent stimuli, visual stimuli while listening.
Yeah.
So they cannot stay still and listen to the narration without a visual stimuli.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
gonna decrease the attention gap for them, right?
It does, and it's highly dangerous. It is extremely dangerous, and that's why I tell my kids, I refer to my students as my kids, by the way. I always tell my students is that you really need to learn how to shut down your phone for 2 hours. At least, even if it's not 2 hours, just put it for 30 minutes. You'll find a huge difference.
Now, like, teachers are fighting to grab the students' attention. What are like some methods that you have tried to implement in order to make them engage?
Very good question. Now, I think as teachers, we are very much responsible for developing ourselves professionally. Okay? Okay, let's say, for example, you work in a school, in a private school, and they don't offer professional development courses. It is your responsibility to develop yourself. No one's going to develop you, by the way. I've taken this amazing course from the Ministry of Education called Supporting English Language Learners with Exceptional Needs. And when we say exceptional needs, we talk about both gifted and students with learning disabilities, okay? There's a concept in teaching that I very much like called UDL, or Universal Design Learning, okay? So Universal Design Learning, it's a learning system and methodology where you would have to make learning accessible for all students, regardless if they have learning disabilities, God forbid, or if they're normal, okay? And PowerPoint presentation is one of them. Trying to use kinesthetic learning, okay? I think the issue with some teachers is that they just talk. They don't give time for students to engage with other students. Some of the activities you can do is, like movement activities. There are many activities you can implement from the curriculum, but also teach it, without deviating away. Especially when it comes to conversation skills, have them do role plays. Have them do
role play. That's a good one.
And reading aloud, and having a student to read aloud the text is the best indicator to see how much their language skills have evolved or decreased.
It's all about knowing the mechanics behind teaching. Because I remember one of my professors used to say, you only have the students for 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
That's how you use those 20 minutes, because after that you're losing them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could say 20 minutes maybe the past 15 years, I guess. Now, if we barely pass after 10 minutes, that by itself is an achievement. لا صدق لأن I think one of the reasons why we have that issue today is not just about social media, it's more about the interest itself.
Of course, and thank you really Nawaf for sharing all this enlightful and very wisdom with us today, and your expertise that I think are definitely have inspired a lot of teachers who are watching us, and they give them some motivation so they can become patient when they're working with the students. So thank you so much for being with us. It was a really amazing time with you.
Thank you, Marzouk and Abdullah. It was an honor to be here today in the studio.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again for that. But as all things, we kind of run out of time for this interview, but we did have a great time. And I do like to thank you so much, because your passion, I think the audience can see it transcends the screen. I can only say mashallah.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind of you, and you're welcome.
Thank you. Sure. We're going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to be back.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, as is the story on The Untold. That was all of the time we've had with Nawaf AlMahdi, and I really did enjoy this conversation today.
Yeah, same here. As someone who's been in the teaching field, and then seeing someone else being in that same field, also inspiring and encouraging people. So I know exactly what he's going through.
Yeah, and for this episode, I was like a bystander, right? I was I was a student watching two teachers. You were talking about classrooms, you were talking about stuff. I was like, okay, now we're getting to the professional lingo between you two.
I know. Yeah. But really salute to him for having the courage and also the patience to endure this journey till now, because I couldn't bear it. I moved to missing of information.
Yeah, and also I was so admirable about him, and I told him off cameras that he was so passionate, right? Because oftentimes, because teaching is such a demanding job, right? You're always asked to be present. A lot of teachers are exhausted. A lot of teachers are, drained out. But he was, full of life, mashallah. He was so energetic. He was so passionate. He was talking about what he'd do with such love. That was just, I was so happy for him.
And even after work, he go back home and he's on TikTok, he to give even more.
Yeah.
And that showed the true passion that he has. So for all the teachers who are watching us for today's episode, I hope you have learned from Nawaf, and I hope you got some tips that can help you to exceed and to challenge your way into this hard career.